Hi guys, today we're going to be doing some canning in the kitchen, and this is one of the easiest ways that I stock my pantry, and it is a very cheap way to do things. So we are going to go over it at the end of the video, what the cost savings is for doing this extra work at home. But I buy my dry beans, and I buy them in as big a bag as I can find, because the more poundage you get, the cheaper it is. And so that's the pinto beans. The black beans I can only find in the 1 pound bag, so I buy those. And then also any of the other specialty beans. I don't know if these are really specialty beans, but you can't really find big bags of kidney beans, red beans, things like that. So we are going to be doing some canning because my stock is low downstairs in the pantry. So what I have done so far this morning is I've gotten my jars together, I've washed them up real good, I've checked for cracks, and as I go through using the jars, I continuously check for cracks and chips and things like that that I need to be aware of. We are going to use the pressure canner today, and this is an All-American pressure canner. It holds 7 quarts, or you can get 20 pints in here. You can get 14 pints in here, or you can get 7 quarts and 6 or 7 pints on top, depending on your wide mouth or small mouth usage. So today we are going to do the quarts on the bottom and the pints on top. I do these in both quarts and pints because if we want to have like pinto beans and cornbread for supper, and that's going to be the main dish, then I will grab a quart-sized jar. If I am going to throw some black beans into my taco soup, then I'm going to use a pint-sized jar. So always keep in mind what you're going to be using this for, and what kind of recipe that you want to do, because you can also flavor these beans as you cook them. As you can them, I mean, or you can do them plain and then add the seasonings when you're ready to use them. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to do the pinto beans in the big jars. So pinto beans in the big jars, and I have these over here sitting in some water, and they've been sitting there maybe about an hour, hour and a half. I did get sidetracked this morning, so they sat in there a little bit longer than I normally do. This is not a, I guess an approved canning method. We're going to use basically dry beans. This is considered canning dry beans. But you always want to wash them real good and at least get them soaking a little bit to where the skins soften up and they're ready to absorb water. And that's what they're going to do inside the jar. Is we're going to fill the jars about 1/3 of the way up with beans, and then the rest of it with boiling hot water. And during the canning process, they're going to absorb that water and fill this jar up, and there'll be very little liquid in there, but you'll have nice fully cooked soft beans in there, as you know. We are going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of salt to the pints, a teaspoon of salt to the quarts. You use non-iodinized salt when you are canning. I use the Redmond's Real Salt. It does leave a little bit of mineral sediment at the bottom, but it's totally fine because I want to incorporate that in the dish. The more minerals, the more better, is what I always say. So let me angle you a little bit. Let me get it to where you can see what I'm doing. Okay. So you want to make sure that when you go through this process that it's going to be warm to warm to warm. Okay, so this is warm water, and I do need to go drain this off. Okay, so these are drained off now, and we are going to get our jars over here. Like I said, we're always checking, and I just happened to run my finger right over that little chip. Now that right there could make my lid not seal good. It's barely feelable from the top, but it is definite from the side. So this will be used for dry goods, keeping mice out of your stuff, that kind of thing. So we'll set that one off to the side. Always check and recheck and recheck, because this is too much work to be wasting your time with jars breaking in your canner. Something caught my eye, but it's not a chip. It's not a crack. Just a little bubble in the glass. So that's totally fine, as long as it's not a crack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So my canner holds 7 quarts. Okay. And like I said, we're going to fill these 1/3 of the way full. And this is an eyeball thing. It's not a hard measurement. Different beans is going to require different amounts. The smaller beans, of course, you're going to you're going to end up putting more poundage in there. And the bigger beans, you'll put less poundage in there. Beans will expand to about 4 times their size. So by soaking them this morning, they pretty much already doubled. So that's 1 times their size. And when they go through the canning process, they'll fill the rest of the way up. A bit more. Just eyeball it. So we have been doing this method, me and my mother-in-law and some of the cousins have been doing this method for quite a while. I don't know how long they've been doing it. I've been doing it for about 3 years now, I think. And I've had no issues whatsoever with exploding my jars or having bad beans or anything like that. In fact, when you pop this top and heat up the beans, that's all you gotta do is heat up the beans. It is going to taste like you have had a ham hock in them and been cooking them all day long. So that's what the flavor profile is going to be like. About yay. A bit more in there. Okay. Get them all about even. At first I lowball it, and by the end I'm highballing it. Now this method too it gives you mostly beans in your jars, and with just a little bit of liquid. If you want more liquid, adjust your beans. If you want less liquid, adjust your beans. So we are going to do the salt. Like I said, this is Redmond's real salt. We're going to do a teaspoon per each jar. This is for flavor, and it also helps your beans absorb the liquid. It's not mandatory because we are pressure canning this stuff. It's not mandatory, but salt does give everything flavor, and you want flavor. Okay, so I'm going to bring you over here. let's try this for a little while. That window back there may give us too much of a glare. But okay, so this is boiling hot water, as you can see. I am going to also go ahead and turn my fan on. I hope that doesn't make too much noise. So, you always want to make sure that your jars are not going from cold to hot, because that could put stress cracks in your jars. So I always set them on a towel to kind of buffer that cold countertop with the hot water in the jar. We are going to go right up to the bottom of the rings. You can't see. So we're going to go right up to the bottom of the rings. Threads. And give a good 1-inch headspace. This is a low acid food, and this is why we have to pressure can these. I find it easier to pressure can than to try to water bath stuff. And we're going to be canning ours for 90 minutes, which is an hour and a half, you know. And then when we turn it off, we can just walk away and let it cool down by itself. The pressure canners have gotten safer over the years with different valves and things like that that keep them from exploding. I'm sure when we were all kids, when Mama had the pressure canner going or the pressure cooker going, we weren't allowed to run through the kitchen or slam the door or make any kind of a roughness in the house because Mom was afraid that the canner would explode. So, I do not use vinegar or anything like that on my lids. It might be a good idea if we were doing something greasy, but I just use a dry towel unless I feel something and I need to wet it. So I want to make sure that these are clean. You're feeling for, there's a little rough spot. It's a seam. It's not a crack, it's a seam. But always checking. Okie dokie. Lids. Okay, so don't go cheap on the lids because that's what you're going to get is cheap lids. People have been having problems with them buckling, with them not sealing, things like that. I have not had any problem with these lids. This is like a foam. It's like a foam rubber. It's really thick on there. I don't know if you can see how thick that is, but these are my favorite lids. They're good strength, you know. Some of the cheaper lids, you can easily pop that in and out. I want a good solid lid, so when that sucks down, that's it. You know, it's on there until I take it off. These do not require putting them in a pan of water, hot water, prior to using them. And they are superb canning jars. Or canning lids, I mean. I got these at Lehman's. It's a store. It's like a homesteady type store that kind of reminds you of Amish stuff. You know, I don't think it's an Amish store, but they are definitely a homesteady store, or like if you're a prepper, you might like to see what they have there. All kinds of non-electric stuff, living off-grid stuff, that kind of stuff. But they have good canning lids. And they have good sales too, so watch for the sales. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put these in the canner because that water over here is hot as well. Okay. My canner is good and hot. I do have the rack down in here. This one comes with 2 racks for doubling it, for double stacking. There is a rack in the bottom of this to keep these jars off the bottom of the canner. I want my jars to be really close together but not to touch. Also with these lids, you want 3-finger tight, don't put your palm on it and crank it. This will keep these jars good and hot until I'm ready to start put the lid on and start the canning process. Because once they're hot, you want to keep them hot. And that one is kept hot. Shoot. Okay. I don't know why that one was so hot. It's been the first one I did. Okay. Oh, 2 more. So that's all the water there. I need just a little bit more. So I always turn my tea kettle on just in case I need just a smidge more. Okay. Wipe the rims. The salt is already in here. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to burp my jars. That's an important step. Okay, so I'm not going to make you watch me pull all these other jars back out, but I am going to do that. And I'm going to give them a little stir, make sure there's no pockets of air. And you see all them bubbles coming up? That's pockets of air. That could make your seal not be a good seal. Okay. So just know that I'm going to do that. I'm going to pull all them jars back out and and burp them and then put them back in. It's okay to make mistakes, just as long as when you catch them, you fix them. Okay, now that we got that done, we are going to put the lid on, or put the rack in for the next batch. And there is the first layer. The rack goes in right on top, and then we'll put the second layer right here. And I can only do pints on the top, or jelly jars, or something like that. I can't do a double stack of quarts. Okay, so as this water is getting to a boil, I have filled up some pint jars, and we are going to put the salt in there and get them ready for the water. This is the size jar that you would be buying at the store. Your regular size 15.5 ounce or 16 ounce can that you would buy at the store. This is how much this holds. So I measured out 4 pounds of dry beans. We are going to get 7 quarts, which is 14 pints. It translates to 14 pints. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. We're going to get 21 pints out of 4 pounds. So 21 jars at, I think they're 90 cents, would be 18 plus bucks. Just a real quick math in my head. And for 4 pounds, they are $2.99 in a bag. It is totally okay to keep your beans dry in a bag, but this is a quick way for me to make a quick meal for my family, and I know that it's a good meal because I know what's in it. So for a pint, a half a teaspoon of salt, if you are worried about your salt, if you are somebody who needs to watch their electrolytes, then you can totally omit this and then just season your meal at the, when you cook it, when you make it. But it does add a really good flavor, and it does soften the skins so that the beans are able to absorb more of the liquid out of the jar. So pretty much your kitchen, your rules. Okay. And that is not near hot enough. So the other jars are sitting over here in this canner, and the heat is on, so they are going to stay warm, so they can wait while this heats up and I get these jars ready, and we can run one batch of all these jars. I'll see you in a minute. Same with these as the bigger jars. You just want to go up and leave 1 inch of headspace. Which is going to be right at the bottom ring. I think that's got them all. Okay. We are going to wipe off our edges. Okay. A little stir. Get them air pockets out. Be careful not to cross thread the lids. If it doesn't go on easy, then that's what's happening, is you're cross threading them. These little burgers are getting hot. 3-finger tight. Put them in your canner. So when you're canning different size jars, hang on just a second, I want to show you this. I just saw it. You see that dent? That could possibly hold my lid up off this jar when it's time for it to seal. So let's throw that one away. So like I said, just always keep checking. So if you have an All-American canner, you know that there is no gasket that goes on here or on here. This metal goes up against that angled metal right there. So what you want to do is take a little bit of oil and grease that connection. So I'm just going to take a little bit of olive oil. You can use lard. You can use Crisco. You know, like I said, is a type of lard, ain't it? You just want it to be a liquid. You don't want any meat bits in there that could hold your lid off. Okay. So I have already checked my canner. I have checked for any dents and dings around the lid. I have made sure that the belly of it is good and normal. I have checked the patency of my vent hole. I've run water through it to make sure that it is clean and clear. That is your safety right here. If there gets too much pressure in here, this is where it comes out. So you want that good and clear. Should that get clogged though, you do have another valve. It's a rubber valve. This will shoot out if there gets too much pressure in here. So on the All-American, there's an arrow right here. There's a groove right there. You line them up. And you get it as even as possible. And it's just an eyeball thing. And I think I put that on there pretty even. Then you take your clamps and you just get them snug for right now. And you go, it's just like lug nuts. You go across from each other. And then these two, just until it's snug. Then these two until they're snug. And now we're going to go down and go ahead and crank them on down. You don't want them so dang tight that you're not going to be able to get them open. But you do want them good and tight, because you don't want any steam escaping from your lid and pot connection. This here is your pressure gauge, and when you get up to steam, when you get up to pressure, you'll see the 10 to 11 pounds. And what that's going to do is it's going to cook it. It's going to cook the ingredients inside the jar at 240 degrees for however long you set your timer for. We want to vent for 10 minutes before we put the weight on here and capture that steam to make sure all the air is out of the canner itself. So I've got it on high, and now we wait until we see steam. And that may take, with as full as this canner is, it's probably going to take a little while. The water was already hot, so that's going to help the time frame. But we're just going to let it do its thing until it is time, and we'll check this every couple of minutes until we start seeing steam. Then we time it for 10 minutes, and I'll see you then. Okay guys, I wanted to show you what that looks like. Can you see it? How the steam's coming out. It's been coming out for a few minutes. You see it better against that cabinet there. Can you see it coming out? Okay, that's what we're wanting for 10 minutes. And it's been about 10 minutes, so now we're gonna put the weight on there. So come over here, we'll get the weight. And 10 pounds of pressure, see it? Right on top there. Now, when this gets up to 10 pounds, right there, that's when we start timing it. And it may take maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes or so to get up to that pressure poundage. So we don't count any of these minutes now until it gets up to 10 pounds. And then we count 90 minutes because we have quarts of beans in there. So it'd be 90 minutes from the time it gets up to 10 pounds. Anytime it drops below 10 pounds, which it rarely happens, but should it drop below 10 pounds, then you start all over again. Okay, so it's been 90 minutes and this has cooled. I turned off the heat and it has cooled to where I could get the weight off without any steam hissing at me. I've already got it unbuckled, and you unbuckle it the same way you buckle it, you know, opposites all the way around. Give it a little turn and then always lift up and away from you. You can see it's still boiling inside the jars. We've got them all out now. Get them nice and covered up. And then I'm just going to let them set until tomorrow. But now it's time to load the canner back up with the black beans. The separator, the rack, whatever you call it. Got lucky with that first one. Usually I am going back and forth, trying to get that thing even. So, let it vent, let the steam come out of the vent for 10 minutes, put the weight on, another 90 minutes. See you again in a minute. And this is our finished product, guys. So 1 day's worth of canning, or one afternoon really, it's not a whole day, is 9 quarts and 11 pints. So that's at least 20 meals that I can make up real quick. Add some beans too, use them as sides, use them as the main meal, or, you know, whatever I want. Okay, so thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.